Okay, class, happy Monday. Welcome to week number 3. Um, this, as you know, will be our recording for week 3. We won't have class tonight. So I will go ahead and upload this video onto YouTube and send you the link once I'm done. So let's go ahead and get started today. And let me go ahead and zoom in here real quick. Actually, let me just make this bigger so you all can see. So for today, this week, number 3, I just graded all of your discussion boards for week 2. So a lot of you did way better. So that's really good. And so this week we have your social concern video. Make sure that you are submitting that video by Sunday midnight. So that's a big assignment. We went over it in detail last week, so make sure you are clear with what the expectations are and know what to submit. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to email me this week, and we'll get those questions answered for you. So that's the big assignment for this week. I didn't put it on here, but you also have your quiz for week 3, so make sure you get that done in your discussion boards for week 3. So it's a pretty hectic week for you all. And item number 3 is your group project presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and spend most of the time here. I'm not going to go over more than 10 minutes, but definitely go over some examples of different group projects that folks have done. Just a reminder that every group will present on January 25th, okay? So everybody has to be present for that class. That will be next Monday. 6:30 will be the start time. Presentations should be no more than 20 minutes. So I would recommend you practice with your team and make sure it's within the 20 minutes. And then for that day, make sure or that evening, plan on staying online for about an hour to 2 hours. Sometimes we do tend to go over. We will go over the hour, I know that for sure. We do have 4 groups presenting, so just FYI, so that way you could make plans accordingly. So those are just kind of some basics for the group project. An example of a group project that I really liked, I'm going to go ahead and share that right now. And I hope you all can see it. This was a crisis plan for potential kidnapping in a middle school. And so these were the individuals that worked on this plan, and I really liked how they did their PowerPoint. I mean, there's some things that I would recommend, and I provided feedback, but you know they wanted to do it on kidnapping, and so they made up a middle school. It was Stevens Middle School, grades 6 through 8. And so they, put on some images here to introduce the middle school. And then they just kind of went over the different types of cases that, we see. And so they provided some statistics, both national, state, and local statistics. And so, again, that's what I really want you to put in your group project presentation, just to give the audience a context as to why you would want to do a crisis plan for that given topic that you're doing it for. Here they go over the duties for administrations, teachers, specialists, and etc. So they really outline each of the individuals, their roles in this plan. And so here, I always am a big believer that less text is better. So I did provide that feedback to them at the end of their presentation. Maybe less text would have been better in this slide. It's just so busy. And as you will see, their slides get very busy as we're progressing. So, something to think about as you're creating your own PowerPoint presentation. Less is best for most, and most audience. We don't really want to just sit and read. We want to have more of a discussion. So just something to think about as you're preparing for your presentation. They go on to continue with duties for staff. So they include the PTA, teachers, custodians, secretaries. So one thing that I did provide as positive feedback for this group was the very comprehensive roles and inclusion of those roles for that school. So they even included the custodians, and the staff, which sometimes we tend not to think about. We think about administrations, counselors, psychologists, but we tend to leave out our classified staff, which are very important in creating a school crisis plan. So then they keep on going over the duties for the staff. And so they then do a checklist of what it would look like if there was a kidnapping on campus. So they talk about issuing a standby instruction. So if there is a kidnapping, they would issue instruction on standby for all teachers. Then the second point there is determine what procedures should be activated depending on the location and nature of the suspected kidnapper. So again, they create a checklist that really walks the individual or the school through a process in case of an emergency or a kidnapping in this case. And again, I don't want you to feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. You don't. You can look at different checklists from different schools that may have one already that's relevant to your topic for the school crisis plan you're developing. I'm sure that these individuals here probably looked at different checklists that were online and created their own. So they provide a detailed checklist here, and they actually explained that and went over that during their presentation. And then they go over again the duties for staff. One thing I really like, and so you see how there's a lot of text here. Again, I would recommend less is best. But then I really like this colored school evacuation map in case of a kidnapping or an emergency on campus. They really did a good job of depending on where you're at, whether you're in buildings in the 600 building or 200 building, it's kind of hard to see here because it's not expanded. But they pretty much took a map from the school and they just made it their own. Again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can look at any map that's available. If you're dealing with a high school, you can look at your local high school evacuation map and make it your own. But I really liked how they explained during their presentation how they would evacuate students to a safe location in case of a kidnapping on campus. And so definitely there's the arrows that guide the students, depending on the buildings that you're in and whatnot. So I really liked that part. They also talked about communication sites. So what would be the central communication sites in case of a kidnapping? They talk about the teacher's lounge, the library, the computer lab, but they went more into detail, like what would this consist of? So the library, who would be there, right? And so they talk about guidance counselors being there and running that library for purposes of counseling and crisis intervention. And so they talk about, as well, computer labs. Teacher's lounge would be more of the command center where law enforcement and parent and guardian check-in and check-out would occur. So again, there's not much text here, which I really, it's really simple, but they really went into detail, which I really liked. So it's really, different from this, and that's kind of very intimidating versus this. This is just more of a discussion. And so again, less is best. Crisis checklist. So they also talked about, doing a school lockdown, calling 911, alerting school personnel. Nowadays, there's many things we could do to alert school personnel. There's alerts via text messages, alerts via over the intercom. So alerts on your computer screen in case a teacher is not looking at their phone. There's sometimes alerts that could just go to the computer screen in case a teacher is looking at it. It could just alert them. There's notification to parents, both phone notification or email or text message. And then they would meet with any witnesses in case of a kidnapping, notify school district, provide counseling services, and write any incident reports for both the school, the district, and any law enforcement agency. So I really like that component. And then lastly, they discussed the short-term and long-term follow-up. So after the crisis, What do we do? What's the short-term follow-up? They talk about gathering information, contacting the parents of the affected students, notifying all parents on the incident and the procedures that were taken. And they even went into creating an informational brochure regarding kidnapping and preventative measures. They provided crisis helplines for students that may have crises or may be traumatized, and any emergency numbers, and then provided extended counseling services for students. They also had an emergency release form, which I'm going to go ahead and share with you, but I'll do it at the end. And then they also talk about long-term, post-vention, what are some long-term, like, referrals out, bi-weekly friend support. I really like that. School assemblies to promote safety. Review of the crisis plan every 6 months. So, there's a crisis that happens and then we tend to just forget about the plan and not revisit. So they talked about that. They also talked about suggested classroom activities for long-term follow-up. And I'll talk about some of those activities in a little bit. But yeah, this was their presentation, a total of 13 slides. Well, actually 12. Well, I would say 11, not including your title page in this one here. So I would say 11 slides of content. I would recommend, given that it's 20 minutes, keep it within 10 to 12 slides, just because anything more will go over the 20 minutes, and that would just keep us longer. So make sure that you keep it within 10 slides, 10 to 12 slides, and 20 minutes or under 20 minutes for your presentation. So that's that with that. Here are the resources that they let me make this so I can fit. These are just some of the crisis resources for parents that they created or put together. So they talk about resources for parents, what to do, ways to prevent, signs and stuff like that. So that was really cool, and they included that. They also had the emergency. We talked about those rosters. So they made up a roster in case of an emergency, keeping accountability of students. So they had a roster there as well. So it was just an easy roster that they included with their project. And then they also had, classroom activities. So we talked about the long-term, intervention. And so they talked about doing classroom activities and electives, English, history, PE, and math. So again, these were just some suggestions that were thrown out there. They also had a emergency release form, and I don't know why it's not here. Let me see if oh, here it is. There it is. And so here, the emergency release form, they included one, and I'm pretty sure they just looked one up on the internet and modified it a little. And this is the one they submitted with their project. In case of an emergency, students need to be released, this would be the emergency form they would use. So that's it for me, as far as giving you some guidance with your project, just so that and you are aware. There's two components to this project. Okay, there's the PowerPoint, which you will present with your group, and then there's the reflection component, which is the paper. The paper should be no more than 2 to 3 pages. It's a reflection of your learning within the group. It could be anything, what you did know, what you didn't know as you were researching your school crisis plan, anything pretty much. So 2 to 3 pages for this reflection. Everybody needs to submit the PowerPoint and the paper individually. So make sure that you are aware of that. And I will go ahead and stop, and I will upload this video onto YouTube and send you the link shortly. So other than that, thank you for listening, and I will see everybody on January the 25th at 6:30. Good luck. Any questions, make sure to email me. Thank you.